Well, howdy. Can you hear me okay? Can you understand me okay? I've been told I have that American accent, so I apologize. I think I got that from my parents. But I'm so happy to be here. This is my first time in Australia, and I'm really interested to hear some of the things that are happening at this conference. I've been attending these sessions, and I was asking myself after attending the imposter syndrome, why am I here? What am I doing here? As you heard, it's 27 years now in this space, and I really have just fallen in love with managing information. And when I think about presenting, it's not about me teaching you, it's about me jogging your brains and getting you excited about what it is that we do. I'm very passionate about it, and I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction, but I first want to set this up. I will challenge you to just listen to what I have to say and apply it to what works for you. Every organization is different. Every leadership team is different. Your challenges are going to be different. There are synergies and there are similarities, but the things I want to share with you is what I've seen be really successful, and I want you to take that and be able to apply it in your organization. So, who is that? This is me many years ago. I'll get into exactly why this photo is there, but I have been so lucky to have had this wonderful 27 years, and I actually started in information technology. I was doing process management and project management. I was writing code in systems and moved into information management. I just found this passion for it. The one thing that I did in my career that I thought was great was I was just absorbing. I wanted to learn everything there was about managing information because it just excited me because it was so challenging. And it was very black and white 20 years ago. It was just, this is the law, the regulation says this, and you must comply. And I didn't like that mentality. I didn't like the way that it shaped who we were and how we were trying to instill things. So I really wanted to find a way to play in the gray, to find the boundaries and to push those boundaries and to make it exciting. Because what we do isn't always sexy, as we've heard. It's not always fun and exciting for people, so I thought, how can we make it fun and exciting? I am a past president of ARM International. If you heard, Michael Haley, who's also here, is a past president. We were able to serve on the board together many years ago. I was recently inducted into the Fellows of ARMA. So I think I'm telling you that because it goes to that credibility. And having just attended this imposter syndrome, I want to make sure that you understand this is my opportunity to share with you what I've done that I really just have seen be so successful. And I want to walk you through at a high level what I've seen, what I've done. And then if you're really interested in more and actually putting in the hard work, there's a workshop tomorrow morning. We're going to sit down and we're going to walk through how you can put this into action if this isn't enough for you, okay? So, what is gamification? It's been around for a long time. It's just really putting things into games. So think about Jeopardy, The Price is Right, Survivor. I was Googling, what are the exciting game shows? And there was one like, one that was more of a very script cast one in Australia, and I thought, well, that's really interesting, but take whatever your favorite game show is, and how can you make it fun? Think of that as gamification. It's making it fun and exciting in a way that you can include others and that they're going to also remember it, right? So why is it so important? It's important because when we make things fun, we tend to remember things. We tend to jog things in people. They get very excited, and they may not remember what the retention schedule is for or what that policy really meant, but they'll remember that you got them excited and you made them feel excited about your records management program. And then they're going to go, you know what? I don't remember, but I know who to call. I know how to connect to the right person and the right audience. And that to me was very exciting. It's all about building relationships and selling ourselves. But it's also important because so many things are changing. And you can't just build it once and let it run. It's not how it works. Technology is changing and so many things are happening. And so I really like looking at this from a different lens. And when I was at one organization 14 and a half years, I had so many roles, and when I was a little younger, we'll say, I was very eager and excited for a minute, and then it was like, my gosh, they keep throwing me around, doing all of these things here and there, and I didn't really appreciate it until I got much older and thought, I've learned so much, I've met so many people, and there are so many different types of the way that people interact. How am I going to connect with them? So now I look back and I implement that in the way that I do a program. I launch programs differently. I understand things. I do assessments. And it's so important for us to do this because I've seen the levels of engagement increase tremendously. So what is the problem? This is one thing, there are a lot of similarities no matter where you are in the world, right? It can be Americas, Europe, Australia, it doesn't matter. We all have complexities of regulations. Regulations are changing constantly. We're trying to keep up. If you send a message to your organization and say, hey, here's the new regulation, comply. Okay, that was one of 1,000 emails I got today. Probably not going to read that one. Swipe right? Or maybe it's swipe left, I don't know. But really starting to understand that, we have to be thinking about how we can integrate that into our training programs and make them fun and exciting. You've also got a lack of engagement. I'm going to take a guess that most of you in here would raise your hand if I said, how many of you have problems getting people to participate in your programs effectively? Probably quite a bit of hands going up in the room. I'm sure there are lots of them online as well. It's really challenging. And I noticed this in the early years of my career and thought, what am I going to do? And we're going to get into the fun part, I promise. I'm just kind of setting this up so you can see this was that train of thought. Technology and budget limitations. Let me go to budget first. When I've done presentations like this in the States and Canada, 100% of the time, most of you who are government employees are the first ones to come and say, Ryan, there is no way I can do what you did. I have $0 in my budget to do this. And so I push back and say, maybe you're not thinking about it the right way. So I'm going to give you a little sweet sauce if you don't have a budget, and I'm going to give you some extra sauce if you do have a budget on what that kind of looks like and what you can do in some case studies that I've seen happen that have been really exciting for everyone that's been participating in them. Technology. The challenges with technology are not just we have technology changing. It's who's using the technology. How many employees are we capturing with this technology? Where's that technology going? When the pandemic hit, we had to immediately launch how many people to go work remotely, right? Those are the technology challenges that we also have to tackle. And then this distributed workforce. How do we handle that? How do we communicate what our needs are when it comes to an information compliance program to those people who are fully remote, who are in the neighboring city or state or province or whatever it is? What are we going to do and how are we going to get them engaged and excited? So I really had to take a step back and think. And I've been at multiple organizations where I've done this, done an assessment. Everyone has been different. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that it's just a one-size-fits-all. It really is, you need to understand your organization. You need to build those relationships, find out what's important to you, and then find out what's important to them. When you understand the business itself, then you can start to tackle some of those complexities within that program component. So, I'm going to jump right into this. I know this is the last session. I'm standing between you and the gala, so bear with me. But I want to just give you some fun things here that I've seen happen. And feel free to take notes. Again, if you want more information, you can contact me or you can attend this session tomorrow where we're going to do work. The first one, a scavenger hunt. So I kind of built these out 1 through 4 as the least complex, least amount of budget, down to more of the very heavily complex and large budget, okay? That first one, the scavenger hunt. When I hear I have no budget, my first question is, Do you have a policy? Is there anyone in here who does not even have a policy? I see no hands, or is there one back there maybe? I see none. Okay. And the reason that I say that, when you think about a scavenger hunt, this is how simple this can be. I'm going to do a records management month, and we're going to do a scavenger hunt. And the first person to go find our records and information management policy and find the fourth word in the sixth paragraph of this document gets entered into a drawing for a $10 gift card or whatever the case may be, right? You can do that, one every single week. It's something very simple, and it doesn't cost you anything except the time to write an email or to write your communications. So it's really about thinking differently. Instead of the I can't, I don't have the budget, to what do I have that I can work with? And that's where I think it's that playing in the gray and getting really excited about this. The escape room. Now, this one, when I did this, it was very different, but I got so sick of training. How many of you have records management training already in your organization? See quite a few hands. And then you have 100 other trainings that come at the same time that are due. I was sick of it. So in one organization, I said, you know what, this is crap. I don't like it. We got to make this fun. So we did the records training, but then at the end, when you take an exam to finish your certification and to say, I did this, I changed it up, and I made it an escape room. And what I mean by that is I would be, let's say I'm the secretary of the executive for an organization, and I have locked myself out of my computer, okay? Framing this for you. And then I have like 10 questions that I have to answer. And for every question that I get right, I get a letter, a digit, an alphanumeric, whatever the case may be. I answer them all correctly, and I have these digits, and I have to unscramble them for them to be the password to my computer to unlock it and then successfully get out of that escape, if you will. That was something more exciting for people. It was a very easy password. It wasn't really complex, but it still was something that people were like, oh, I remember that training because we did this very differently. So it's really about framing it. RIM month and records or liaison coordinator training. I'm hoping that a lot of you have those coordinator training programs in place. I'll talk about that first. Records coordinators, liaisons, those people who are within the business that are to be your go-to people, your experts, to help you out, to give you some relief. When I've done training with them, how do I make that fun? This is not the most exciting thing for them. We're passionate about it. What do? I had records liaison officers at one organization. We called them Rolos. I don't know if y'all have the Rolo candies. They look like this, and So I took those, and after they completed the course and I fed them, gave them lunch, I took those little Rolos and I had written a little diploma, a graduation diploma, and I wrapped it on the Rolos, tied it up, and then I handed it to them as they graduated from the class. Something that they remembered, but it was also something they could put proudly on their office wall and they could see, and if they ever forgot what their duties were, they could look at it as a reminder. Something really simple, didn't cost a lot of money, but something we were able to implement. RIM month. Ooh, this one is a fun one for me because RIM month is just, hey, it's RIM awareness. Make sure you know there's a policy, there's a standard. That's what I kept seeing over and over. And I'm like, all right, we got to stop. Let's trick people's brains. Let's get them to think about what is wrong with the way we think about records and information management. So most recently I did one called the myths of records management. So things like, did you know the myth is that it is cheaper to store your records on site in an office versus at an off-site storage facility? And then I was able to show the calculation and show them why it was a myth. So I started to think about what are the common mistakes and missteps that people tend to have within the office setting when they think about who we are and what we do. But every records management group is different, right? I've had organizations where I've been leading a facilities team, an operations team, contracts management. So I had to find what was the right fit for each organization and then embed it. I think RIM month is something that can be really exciting, but you don't have to make it hard. It can be repeatable too. Take what you've had and then just add to it. Every year, if you add something, you've got your myths the first year. The next year, you added a little Jeopardy game or something else exciting. Why would you not just keep adding? And then you have this massive toolkit, and you can start pulling and refreshing content and data. Make it simple for yourself. Records Cleanup Day. I'm very passionate about cleaning up records, as I think we all are, right? We want to get rid of the stuff when it's necessary, but people don't like it. There's always a way to get them excited about it. It used to be just whoever destroys the most gets a pizza party. Woo, congratulations. Well, yeah, people are going to start throwing in blank papers into their shred bins because they want to win pizza, which is not what we want, right? We want them to understand what the expectations are. We want them to comply. But I want to tell you a story about a most recent one that I did. And I went into an organization, and the CEO mandated and said, I am sick and tired of all this crap around this office. Clean it up. I don't care what the hell you have to do. And I was like, whoa, okay, well, I'll make it work. So I wanted to implement something that's repeatable. Again, there's always that process in getting something that's going to be repeatable. And I thought, okay, I'm going to work with my corporate communications team to see if they can help develop something. Here's my idea. And we came up with this idea called Operation Clean Sweep. And it was a branded program for the organization. And every second week of December is now Operation Clean Sweep. So what do? The organization now knows that is your time to go in and to start cleaning up your desk, making sure there are no records laying around or boxes, partnering with the safety. When we talk about synergies, who are your other stakeholders? A box sitting at a desk somebody can trip over, so your safety team might want to be involved, right? Thinking about those things is really important because people don't think about that all the time. We're so busy in our daily lives. We're so busy trying to get work done, we don't always think about what that would be. So making that happen. If you want to do one cleanup day a quarter, great. Do it for your electronic records. Do it for your physical records. When I did this last one, I actually partnered with the facilities team, and I partnered with IT. So if you had any IT equipment laying around at your desk, bring it. No questions asked. Now, this was a very interesting organization, and it was come as you are, no questions asked, just drop it off, and we'll take care of it. It was very challenging on the record side and processing it, because then it's like, all right, are these truly records? Are they copies? Where does it fall in the retention schedule? Can I get rid of it? But it was the only way we could get participation from our audience. We needed those people to bring us the stuff so we could process it. And it was really exciting to see how many people were like, oh, finally I can just dump it somewhere. And you know, there's the mice that you have from computers, and a couple of old laptops from 20 years ago showed up, and Lord knows what else. But they started getting that like, oh, and they started collecting it throughout the year, and then they would bring it and they would dump it. So you started to see this trend, and the office actually started to look nicer. But people started to be good corporate citizens too, and thinking about, if I'm doing that here, I should be doing that elsewhere, and what does that look like? And then spreading that cheer and love around records management, right, with others. This last one, this is the one where I get a lot of people who are really excited and a lot of people who are like, you are crazy. You all saw that photo, right? The photo where I was dressed up. So the Content Cleanup Carnival, I'm gonna guess that most of you attended the party last night, right? And for those of you online, it was really spectacular. And there was a cool little carnival branding that you would see. It looks like it was taken from my presentation, not this one, but another one that I do, so really just aligns perfectly. I ended up doing this event, and when I tell you about it, just know I was in a very different mindset, I guess. I wasn't as laid back now. I was gung-ho. I ended up creating an event, the Content Cleanup Carnival, and it literally was what you would expect. You would walk into a room this size, and there were booths, a booth here, a booth there, like an expo, and there were games. There were games about things like disposition duckies, things like legal hold fish pond, definition card games. All of these things related to records and information management, but they were fun. first thing that we did when we saw them was, now we had a lot of swag. We'll talk about swag in a minute. A lot of those takeaways and shirts and squishies. But the first thing we did was make sure that we connected it to them. And so we gave them a passport and said, you go attend all of these, and then you get entered into a drawing for a talking trash can, I believe it was, which was really cool at the time. Not sure why. And I'm like, okay, how do I connect it? So I gave them an example personal records retention schedule, not sponsored by the company, but to say, you have tax records. You need to keep them this long. You have records around your automobiles. You need to keep them this long. This is just a recommendation. And when they started to see how their records at home need to be organized and ordered, they were easily able to connect it to my records in the office. They also have a retention that I need to keep and I need to maintain. So people were just shocked because we don't learn in school, hey, you have to keep your tax records for 7 years or 10 years or whatever the case may be. That's not taught to us, right? We learn that typically word of mouth in the States. I'm assuming it's the same way here. Nobody teaches you that stuff. So this is your opportunity to bring some of that in. It's also an opportunity to take things like RIMPA. So ARMA International, I use that as some of the springboard and the foundation for some of those conversations. Did you know there's an organization that will let you bring your documents, your records at home to a huge shredding event that's free of charge? You drop it off, no questions asked, it's shredded. It's a great fundraiser, by the way, for any RIMPA folks in here that are looking for something. Really, really great event. They had no idea because nobody thinks about that. We don't talk about that enough. So back to the carnival. This was so massive of a production. It started as one event. It took us about 9 months to execute. The budget was probably around 100,000 US dollars. I was expecting some gasps from the room. I think I heard a couple online. No. But it just kept changing, right? This organization was going through a lot of changes, and we started with one concept, and we were going to brand it from the organization, and then they went, oh, stop. We're buying another organization. We're going to merge, and we're going to be called something else. So all those logos you have to change it out. We're like, okay, great. Oh, by the way, we have something else going on. Stop and change. So we started tracking a list of when we thought we were going to do it and when we actually executed. And so the games, as you can imagine, went from pretty basic the first 3 months when we thought we were going to execute to something extremely extravagant. And it was so cool just to see how many people participated. I'll give some more of these details in the workshop tomorrow, but I'll give you a little bit of it now just so you can kind of understand what it was. We started with just the corporate office. There were 2,000 people in the corporate office. We had over 65% of our people in that building participate at the event. The event was only 2 days, from 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock. So we tried to hit everybody's lunch hour. We went beforehand and told them about it. We sat in front of the elevators with a, hey, here's the kind of swag you can get. We went at lunchtime the week before and said, here's some Cracker Jacks, come attend our event. I mean, we went all out. But the games, these concepts, every game had a concept, whether it was how to understand the retention schedule. We had this little duck pond. Now, you all know the little pools, the kiddie pools that you have. We couldn't fill them with water. Safety didn't like that because we could have had an accident. So we took this pool and we shredded a bunch of blue paper and we made it look like water. And then on the bottom of these little rubber duckies, we put just a sticker. And then whatever you picked, you would look at the wall and see what it was. And then you had to determine, had that little ducky met its retention period or did it go back into the pond, right? Just a simple concept, something like that. So really getting around those and applying them is something really, really important to do. The disposition duckies was a phenomenal thing. And every single one of the games that we had, people were dressed up. So for disposition duckies, we had like a safari hat and a girl dressed as a jungle tour guide. We had definition card games where we were explaining the different definitions of our records and information management terms. And that person was dressed up as a card dealer. And we had them on the back of little cards and we would flip them around. We had a an information pyramid to talk about the different types of information and what was transient information, what was important records, and what were vital records, etc. And they were dressed up as a pharaoh for that pyramid. One of them was a big bucket records game, and we took these round buckets and we applied our records retention bucket to it. There were 6 of them, and then we would give them a frisbee, golf disc, a disc. You know what a frisbee, right? That thing. Yeah, that thing. And we put a record on top of it, printed it out, and then it would say, this is an invoice. And then we would take that, and they would have to throw it into the right bucket. Now keep in mind, for safety reasons, the person who's running that game should be on this side of the buckets, not behind the buckets. But we started to think about how could we do that, and people really loved it and enjoyed it. Even for things like your destruction process. We took our destruction process, and to try to teach people, before you destroy something, you must get approval. We had a beanbag toss or cornhole, and we had different names on it. And they would take these beanbags, and they had to throw it in the right cornhole, the little holes, to determine which one it would be. We had on there like the CEO, Mickey Mouse, or your records manager, your department manager, the people who you truly need to do. So we really just took these ideas and threw them all into some games that were simple, that were engaging, and people remembered, and they learned, and they could go back to that and think about, not only was it fun, but I really learned something. And I have to share with you, I had an attorney come up to me who had worked at this organization for 8 years and said, Ryan, honestly, I learned something here. I didn't even know that we had these things in place. Never mind, it was our litigation attorney, but those are the types of things, those are rewarding conversations. If you do events like this, if you have one person that says, you know what, I learned something, that should be enough. I would say we've done our job. You want it to be 1,000, 10,000, but if it's one, doesn't it just make you go home and feel like, wow, I did something great? So many other things that I could tell you about from that carnival. I'd love to give you all the spiel offline, and I'll even share my other presentation where I have an entire checklist of what those things look like. But I want to pop into what you can do at a high level and how you can kind of start thinking about this for your organization. So when I think about this, it's the brainstorm. I don't know how many of you are whiteboarders. I love a whiteboard. You give me a marker and a whiteboard and I will go to town. I went on vacation to Hawaii in February and I was in the room and it was a nice, floor to ceiling, beautiful windows looking out over Hawaii and the waters. And I traveled with my marker and I went to town. And that's what I do. Because I was brainstorming. I just got so excited. I'm like, oh, that rainbow is really pretty. Oh, but So use the things that are at your disposal. But brainstorm. That content cleanup carnival, I went into a room with my staff and said, all right, here's what I'm thinking. I want to make it fun. And they're like, well, fun what? I said, I want to have an event. I want it to be fun. I want to teach people. I want them to learn what we have, and I want us to be ready for it. And so I said, I want to have alliteration. It needs to be something, like 3 A's, 3 C's, 3 D, and it's content cleanup carnival. Great. That's the title. Let's go with it. I have a whole logo that we developed. There's actually like 5 or 6 logos for this event, and it's a logo that is standard that you can use every year. So when you start to put things like numbers, so years, dates, things like that on your logos, you can't use them. You cannot repeat them. You have to go and create a new one, right? So be smart when you start creating these things. If you build that brand, when you see a Shell gas station, when you see TK Maxx, you know what that brand is, right? You see it, you know it. Brand your stuff. Brand your program. Brand your events even if you're able to do that. And if you're in the government areas, you can probably share brands as long as you do the right things on the back end. It doesn't have to be everybody does their own thing. And you can even share ideas. So think about that in your brainstorm. Think about how do you scope it out? How many people do you want to do? Do you want to train everybody in your organization because you have a dire need? Or do you say, you know what? This office, the 2,000 people, I'm going to start there. After that, I have another 20 sites that I need to get to, but I can do that next year, and I can build this out, and then I can make it mobile and build upon that. The other thing that I will tell you in the brainstorm, start from limitless. And what does that mean? When I tell you to get in there and brainstorm, you act like you have the biggest budget in the world, money is not an object, and you draw out what you want. Leave no stone unturned. I want this, and I want to gamify this, and I want to have technology, and I want to have I want everything. And the reason I tell you that is because when you start to get down to the details, and you say, this is what I want to do, that's when you talk to your leadership and say, hey, here's what I want to do. And they go, yeah, that's great. Nope, you only have a budget about this big. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I can do this and this and this. Great. So you go and you implement that. But then guess what? You've already put the bug in their ear so that next year when you need budget, you say, hey, you let me do this. Now I want to do this much of it. Can we at least get this much of a budget? It's already there. You don't have to go back and start thinking, where was I a year ago when I started doing this? So you're doing yourself a favor and putting it there. Don't tuck it away too far. Keep it there and use it as your talking points for your budget. The business value. This is one that will make it or break it for you. When I see business value, it's what is your ROI, your return on investments, your metrics, your KPIs, your KRIs. What are you tracking and why? Right? Is it monetary? Is it the number of people that you've trained? Don't you have to turn that over to somebody to say, hey, Mr. Regulator, I trained all my people, we're at 100% compliance? You may have to. So for me, when I was doing this event specifically, my executive leadership team said, Ryan, this is great, but how much is this going to cost the organization per person that attends? Because they're not going to be working. So you can even start to think about that. And I had to say, here's the calculation. If they go for, and I thought they were only going to be there an hour and a half, and some of them stayed the entire 4 hours both days. 1.5 hours times the average employee rate is $100. Let's just say it's $100. I'm going to make it easy for me because it's getting late, right? $100 times 2,000 employees. What does that look like? Okay, how is this going to help support our organization? What does that look like from a compliance standpoint? I'm like, well, so I have to go back and think. Now, if I teach them and we don't have, let's say we go from 10 lawsuits down to 5 lawsuits because we've trained them and they're doing the right thing. Or maybe we don't get fined as much because of X, Y, and Z. Or maybe we have the, just thinking about what's important in those KPIs and those KRIs, right? Those key performance indicators will make it or break it. But don't just focus on those ones. What about technology? Now, this is one that's going to make some of you cringe, and I'm going to tell you, again, I was in a different state of mind. One of the things I did at this carnival, I had partnered with people external and internal and everybody that I could think of because I didn't have a very large team and I needed like 30 people to pull this off. One of the people that I partnered with was our IT team. And our information technology team came in, sat there. They had a nice big screen right there, and it was about the 3rd or 4th booth when people came in. And the first thing they did was say, look at this. This is what a normal computer has as far as gigabytes when we load them when you get here as an employee. Awesome. It's 2.5 gig or whatever it was. And they're like, oh, what's your user ID? Oh, 165 gigabytes of data. What the hell do you have on your drive now? We should really talk about this. It was a way to really bring that awareness to them and make them think, what do I have? Am I just saving things in my desktop? Do I have something in these download folders that I just haven't cleaned up? It's just bringing that awareness to them. It's not really trying to call them out necessarily, but it at least shows them that there's a connection here. Oh, and by the way, when you're traveling with that computer, if you lose it, there's more data that can be lost. If it's breached, there's more data that can be lost. So you're creating a liability by not putting it in this content management system over here. And people were just like, why had no idea. I think my photos of my kids are on there, and I think I've got my student loan documents out there. So it's really bringing that awareness. What is that business value, and how are you going to get that back? And having all those metrics will help you sell it more and more, and then you can build it big and big and big and big. Number 3, engaging partners. So when I tell you that I partnered with I had people from ARMA International that came and joined. I had people from my business. My scanning vendor was out there. My storage provider came out and attended this. I mean, clearly I had to talk to certain people and get approvals because it's necessary for confidentiality reasons and whatever else. But we had, I think, like 12, 13 booths. We had our internal cybersecurity team come in, and they showed up in costume, which was surprising as well. It was amazing. We really had such a great time with this event. So it's really about thinking. These are very small things. It can be a large production. The reason I spent so much money up front is because I wanted to brand it, and I wanted to make it something that I'm going to buy all these signs, these travel posters, and all this stuff right now, and then I don't have to do it again. So my cost went from here to here the next year because I didn't have to buy the signs. All that signage was done. I just put it up and I go to the next office, put it up and I go. So it was really easy to sell that. But those partners are so important. Identify those stakeholders. I even had a ribbon cutting ceremony to kick off the event, like full-on ribbon, big scissors. The general counsel of the organization came and cut and opened it and welcomed everybody who was attending. It was really, really nice to see that. Identify resources. This is one that may happen in your brainstorming session, but as you start to think about what are those games that I'm going to be doing, what does that look like, just ask people around. Hey, are you having a garage sale? What kind of things do you have? I know that sounds ridiculous, but it actually works. Garage sales and Amazon were our friend. We saved a lot of money from both of them. But things like skee ball, right? The games that we saw at the carnival last night, those little creepy clowns that were turning like this, y'all saw that, right? I was immediately thinking, man, if I had a game like that, what would it be? Like put the ball in the right clown. Those are the kind of things that are really exciting for me. But you can use it, what you have at your disposal. Technology. When IT came in and they said, oh, we have these big Microsoft, I don't even know what they were called back in the day. They were Surface type televisions, but they were touchscreen and they were brand new technology at the time. And so what we did is we said we want to use it. We want to have touchscreen. We want it to be interactive. So we built in a nice interactive tool for people when they came in. So they could see, oh, if I click here, that's where I go. Here's what the game is. So many different things that we could do. And we also identified what we didn't have and that we wanted. And then some people were volunteering, like stanchions and drapes and whatever it looked like. I mean, it looked like a carnival. Prototype. This one is highly important. And I say this because everyone learns differently. So when we take this in front of our audiences, we don't want it to be the first time they've seen it. We want to make sure somebody's seen it and said, that's going to work, that's great, or that's terrible, what were you thinking? Go back to the drawing board. So we put this in front of like the general counsel and other people within the business, our records coordinators, and said, hey, if you were to pilot this, what do you think? They're like, wow, this is incredible. This is really great. And then one of them's like, I don't think you can use that word right there because that word is a little alarming to people. Or we're like, oh, okay. So we had to be really sensitive when we started thinking about how to brand it, how to launch it, and where we would be doing these things. There are sensitivities within organizations about what could be confidential versus not, and what you say to one part of the business may mean something different to this part of the business or this office in a different location. So we really had to make sure that it was something that was just really well executed and get those approvals up front, and it was really successful. The launch. Planning the launch. What's your roadmap look like? When are you going to launch it? Now, hopefully you don't have to wait 9 months to launch it like some of us do. But do you want to launch it during RIM month? Is RIM month the perfect time for you to do a launch and do this type of training but do it in a fun way? Or do you want to do it in October because it's a festival season or it lines up with something else you have going on in the organization? Think about what that looks like. And when you do that, try to use those resources that you looked at. Do you have a conference center on site? Do you have one that's free of charge? Do you have the right people out there when you do this launch? What's that going to look like? And can you pull in other people from the business to help you? If you did one fair, I think this would be the coolest thing, and this is just me, pushing my brain out there for you. If there was one massive government records and information management fair in Australia and everybody was there and each organization had their own games to teach their own things and y'all partnered together and told people this is how you do it the right way, how fun would that be? I mean, I would join. I think it would be fun. And then improve, right? That continuous improvement. What worked, what didn't work, start tracking that. And let me tell you, the first time you do it, if that list is really long, that is not failure. It's not failure. It just means that there's more things to improve upon so that you have an even better event next year. Because that first one, man, I tell you, we had so many successes, and then there was like, oh, the power went out in this truck, so we can't shred anymore. Oh, it's gonna happen. Take it as a win. You have a successful event. Again, one person, I strongly believe if one person leaves and says, that was a great event, you've really done your job. So I'm going to try to wrap up early. I think we have a little time for questions, but I don't want to stand between you and, shower and pretty, whatever that looks like for the gala. But this is it. Make it fun. When you think about gamifying governance, don't limit yourself. What's your favorite game? It could be Monopoly. I don't know what game you think of. It could be tic-tac-toe. You find a way to make it something that's exciting and fun for people and incorporate that into your program. Start from limitless. When you get in there and you go back, if you come to the session tomorrow, we have a worksheet and we will be doing homework and you will take it back to your organization. You will have all that ready to go. I'm going to make you work. But it'll be really rewarding for you because then you'll have something to start from and we're going to collaborate with each other, those successes through synergies. It'll be the perfect place to talk about what you think is going to work and what's not going to work with some of your peers from the conference. Understand who your audience is. Are you trying to just get to your records coordinators first? Are you trying to get to the entire population? Or is it more? Do you include employees? Do you include contractors? Do you call them personnel? Some do, some don't. Start to scope that out and really understand what it is. Are they remote? Are they in the office? Do they have other competing factors? So if it's going to be too complicated of a game, are they really going to participate? Are they going to learn? Or are they going to go, oh my gosh, 2 minutes in, I'm done, I'm not doing this, put me on the naughty list, right? Show your ROI, start to track that. When you're in that session, you're brainstorming about what is it, just start taking notes. Oh, if we do this, we better track what that looks like. We're going to track how many dollars we're going to spend per, we're going to track how many gigabytes are being removed. We did do a snapshot of the before gigabytes in the organization and the after the event. It did go down, not much, but it did go down. And then that look back and improve. Again, continuous improvement. And share it with your peers. Come to conferences like this, share it with each other, talk about what you did. Hopefully you're gonna do an event. Next year you come back and you go, oh my gosh, I gamified governance and guess what happened? It was such a success. And here's how we're gonna do it again next year. Now we've branded it this way. Use that, use these connections. That's the one thing I will say that ARMA, RIMPA, and these types of organizations have done for me is really give me that platform to talk to others about what's gonna work. And if I put something out there and they say, nope, that's crap, not gonna work, I don't take offense to that. That's like, you're being realistic because it won't work in your organization. But maybe it'll work for Sally Joe over here. Who knows? I love that and I think it's really incredible. So, gone is the world of black and white. It's time to play in the gray. When I started in records management, I'm telling you, everything, black and white, black and white, black and white. And when I started interviewing people, and I had one person, who will not be named, interview with me, and I said, hey, here's the situation. We've got the business telling us that they have to do X, Y, and Z, and how would you respond? And they sat there and they looked at me, dead in the eye, fresh out of records school. I mean, graduated with their master's and said, it's the law, you must do it, it's records management, it's black and white. I'm like, oh, nope, you will not be doing well here. I would work on that if I were you, but we're not black and white anymore. There are more than 50 shades of gray. There's several hundred that we're playing in. Find what works best for you. Find the right balance, take it, make it fun. If you have children, ask them. If you have nieces, nephews, friends with children, ask them, what are the top games right now? How can you take those? The little fish pond, that little legal hold fish pond where you throw a fish over, and back in my day, you would throw it over and you'd get like a candy bucket back, and then you could take the candy home. That's how we came up with the ideas. It was just thinking about that childhood. Think about those memories, use that to implement into your programs, and I really think you're gonna see some tremendous improvement and engagement from your audience and change those behaviors. With that, have just a little bit of time for questions if there are any. Uh-oh, already a hand. Woo! Here we go.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Murphy. I'm with Defence Housing Australia. I'll tell you a little story first of a game that I did unintentionally. So I worked for a local government council, and the general manager decided that they would have a clean-up day with no guidance whatsoever other than take it out of your desks and put it in the skip bins outside. So this was absolutely terrifying to us, and we tried talking with them about the records management implications for this. Nothing had been sentenced, and it was like blah, 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 wouldn't listen to us. So I had to think about it, and I realised that the day that it was on was Halloween. So I went and hired the team a bunch of witches' costumes, and we stood at that skip bin and guarded it and battered people away with our brooms and said, "What's in your box?" and made everyone open their boxes, and we sorted through it before we allowed them to pass to put it in the bin, or we kept it behind us.
Very smart.
So it...
Yes, that's awesome.
But it changed our reputation from being the records bitches to the records witches. So
There's a positive.
it was, and it became an annual thing, and the general manager just couldn't fight us on it. He loved it, so that was a win. But where I am now is offices all over Australia, and a lot of people are in the same position. You know, how can we gamify with our remote teams?
Okay, so question, how can we gamify without records teams, right? Without people in the sites, right? So this is a great question, and it's going to vary by organization, obviously. My recommendation would be find that records liaison program, develop that program. What does it look like? What are the roles and the responsibilities for those people within the business? And you train them. It's kind of that train the trainer approach. So if you have a site with only 10 people, you can tell somebody to do it. You can ask for volunteers, but figure out what that business is. I've had organizations where those sites wanted to have one person that was there be their records coordinator because it became a mandate. One of the things I started doing recently was creating a records and information management charter that has buy-in and support from your executive. So when I go into the business and talk to the leadership and say, this is a mandate from the general counsel or the CEO or whomever it is, that leader, I need this role identified. So that's the first thing that I do, is I build that list of all my departments and all my locations. And in some organizations, I've had smaller offices where one person will support anywhere between 2 to 5 offices. They may not be physically in that location, but they were able to build into their goals and their budget money to travel to those offices. And so once a year they would go and they would help them with their disposition and things. It's really about building that liaison that's within that area. So if it's not that immediate office, maybe somebody who's close to there, start to build those relationships. But I would say get that mandate, build out that charter, get it blessed, because when you go in and say this is what needs to happen, it's not as fun as it could be. You make the training fun, but at least get that buy-in and support. I've had organizations that actually would identify those people and then tie it to their goals, and then those goals were tied to their bonus and their performance. So can you imagine managing records as a part of your bonus and your goals? People are like, well, what? Why is that? So it really helps tie it back in. I mean, it's a little bit more of the stick than the carrot, but I think you have to figure out what's going to work best. And if you can build out that program, that liaisonship program, and pitch it out there and say, hey, what's this look like? And maybe records liaison's not the term. Maybe records coordinator is not the term. Maybe it's just, I don't know, information liaison, I don't know. You call it what you want to, but if you can't get that leadership to identify someone at that office, they at least need to have one line of defense before they come to you as that support person. And that's what that coordinator program should be. And then you start with them. And those are the people you should be going to and saying, hey, we're gonna launch this policy. Here's my training. Does this make sense? Do you like it? Are there parts of this you don't understand? They should know where to go. They should be understanding the schedule, and you can start to carve out the things that are important to them in that office specifically. Now, what's gonna happen is you implement that, and then they're gonna go, yeah, you did this, and now I have to move physical records over here, and I have to go throw it away, and I have to scan, and I have to. It's just organically gonna happen. I've seen it happen like that in every organization. But as long as you make it fun, and you have those touch points, and then you complement them to their leadership and send messages saying, we could not do this without this person. They're doing so amazing. I'd love to see them expand their role and do X, Y, and Z. Those are the types of things when building those relationships are going to help. But long story short, it would be that type of coordinator program at some level. Great question. And I love the witches. I mean, that's fantastic. We have a little bit of time left. One more question, or are you all ready to go party? All right, well, with that, I will say thank you so much. Hopefully, I will see you all this evening and tomorrow. If you have questions, find me afterwards.